up Super Goal 11 today with our last 3 goals, which are very intertwined with each other, which is why we're doing all 3 of them in one day. Really talking about circles. Okay? And we talk about circles because circles are quadratic equations also. When the equation of a circle is in a certain form, it tells you information. So when it looks like this, it tells you just by looking at it, kind of like the one parabola one where you can take the vertex of the circle just by looking at it. You can find the center and radius of the circle just by looking at this. So the center is going to be the HK ordered pair. And again, just like the parabola, the part that's in the parentheses has a minus. So because of that, you take the opposite of what you see there, just like with the parabola's first vertex. So the center is going to be my HK, and the radius is going to be the square root of whatever this number is. So if this number were 25, because it represents the radius squared, the radius would be 5. So the square root of that number represents the radius. Okay? If you have a circle with the center at the origin, then you don't have parentheses. You just have x squared plus y squared equals r squared. So in this particular equation, because again, at some point in one of your classes, you'll have to identify what graphs are just by looking at the equation. So a circle has an x squared and a y squared. They're both positives, and they both have the same coefficient. Okay, because once you change the coefficients, then it becomes an ellipse, which is kind of like not an egg, not a football, but an oval-like thing. So once you change the coefficients in front of here, when they're not the same, then it becomes an ellipse. And when you change it to a minus instead of a plus, whether they're the same or not, it becomes a hyperbola. Okay? So little things make it different from each other. A circle is an x squared, a y squared, both positive, both same coefficients. Okay? So, and again, if I don't have any parentheses, then that would represent that those points would be zeros. So this would be a circle with the center at the origin. Okay, so let's work with a couple of these equations. Find the center and the radius of this circle and graph. Again, because the standard form has minuses in it, we're going to take the opposite of what we see in the parentheses. So because it says positive or plus 2, our h is going to be negative 2. And because it says minus 5, our k is going to be a positive 5. So our center is at negative 2, positive 5. The radius is the square root of whatever that number is. So in this case, 5. And when you graph your center first. Negative 2, positive 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you got to know what the radius is. The radius is a distance from the center to the side of the circle. That's what that represents. So from the center, you go to the right 5 units, down 5 units, to the left 5 units, and up 5 units. And I draw my circle, which is not going to look much like a circle, I'll be real honest. I can't do it very well on an iPad. Well, it's better than I usually do. And I draw my circle. It usually helps when something's plugged in. That's the lighter. Makes it work better. Okay, questions so far? Okay, on my next one, you'll notice that there's no parentheses on the x squared. So that means that that value is 0 for my h. And then my k, because it says y minus 2, is a positive 2. So my center is 0, 2. My radius is the square root of that number, which is 3. And I graph. My center is at 0, 2. My radius is 3, so I'm going to go up 3, left, right 3, down 3, went 2, 1, 2, 3. I went 4 there, didn't I? I did. And then draw my circle. You're thinking, oh, I can do that. But then you get this. Yes, sir?
With that C, how did you get the 0 with the X?
Because there's no parentheses there. So if we go back up to our notes here, this is where you have a circle whose center is at the origin. The origin is 0, 0. So there's no parentheses. So that would be like saying x minus 0. There's no number there. I can make it x minus 0, which makes that coordinate, the h or the k, a 0. So since there's no parentheses there, no number, that would mean my h is a 0. Okay? Okay, but what happens if it's not in the right form? Like this one. This is where you have to get it into the right form. And earlier I told you, when we completed the square, like I wouldn't necessarily choose complete the square to solve an equation, but it's a necessary thing, and this is where it comes in. You're going to take this equation and you're going to make it look like the ones we just did. Make it have parentheses in it by double completing the square. Okay? So here we go. To do this, group your x's, leave a little space, group your y's, leave a little space, and move your constant term to the right side of equals. So group your x's, group the y's, and move the constant to the right side of equals. And then we're going to do all this in our head, because I'm not going to give you odd numbers that you're going to have fractions. They're all going to be nice even numbers to work with. Okay, so this should be very doable up here in your head without writing it. Okay, so now we're going to complete the square on the x and complete the square on the y. So we're going to complete the square twice in the same equation. So we're going to take half of 8 is 4 squared 16. And I'm going to add it right there. But remember, I got to do it over here too. Add to both sides. And then take half of 2 on the y's now. Half of 2 is 1. Squared is 1. Add to both sides. And then I'm going to factor the x trinomial and factor the y trinomial and add the numbers on the right side. When I factor, I probably do not need to write the 2 sets of parentheses because we've done a lot of difference to square or complete the square now. We know that they're going to come out the same. So I know that it's going to be x plus, because my middle term is a plus, the square root of 16 is 4, squared, and on my y, it's going to be y minus, because the middle term is minus. The square root of 1 is 1, squared equals 2. So yes, we're completing the square, but they're easier than the ones that we did with just complete the square, because I'm not giving you odd numbers, I'm not giving you fractions. I'm being very kind here and staying with all even linear terms to make it simple. Okay? And then we're ready to go. We've got our center at -4, +1. And my radius is the square root of 2, 1.7. I never remember that one. I think that's right. 1.4. I was thinking that was maybe too big. So about 1.4. So I have a center at -4, +1, and a radius of about 1.5. do another one of those, so don't worry, just to reiterate all of that. Some questions though. I'll do another one, so you see it again. Okay, so let's go to our next one. We're going to group our x's, leave a little space, group the y's, leave a little space, and move the constant term to the right. So subtract your 27. Then we're going to take half of 12 is 6, squared is 36, add to both sides. Half of 8 is 4, squared is 16, add to both sides. Factor, factor, add. So when I factor my x's, I'm going to get x minus, because the middle term is minus, square root of 36 is 6, quantity squared, plus y minus, middle term is a minus, square root of 16 is 4, quantity squared, and then add, and I get 25. This makes my center positive 6, positive 4, and makes my radius 5. I am going to go off it. I'm going to go by 2's. So I'm going to have 6, 4, so 2, 4, 6, 2, 4. And my radius is 5. So 2, 4, 5, 2, 4, 5, 2, 4, 5, 2, 4, 5. So again, if you go by something other than ones, just make sure you mark it so when I look at the graph, it immediately doesn't look wrong. Okay, question there?